Have you ever witnessed someone say if you don't like it leave and everyone left? Part 2. I once worked at a plant that sorted pallets. I worked like 16 to 18 hours a day, sometimes more off the clock. As time went on they demanded more and more work from us. By this time I was a manager. Well, people were getting burned out, getting sick, or just plain stopped coming to work. So keeping workers was nearly impossible. The straw that broke the camel's back came when a higher up came in from out of state and informed us our pay was going to go down and we were expected to put out 20% more work. This not only was an impossible feat but was asking way too much of people sorting 50 to 70 pound pallets by hand for 16 hours a day. We said that it wasn't fair. AMD, was there any way to at least keep out current pay? Was firmly told if we didn't like it then we could leave. We looked around at each other, grabbed our name badges and threw them at this higher up and walked out and went to a local bar. Last I heard that plant was shut down for overworking staff and underpaying them. Went to a friend's party and it turned out to be a sausage fest of about 25 guys and no women. A couple of guys asked him, are there going to be women coming to the party? He said something to the effect of they were invited but he wasn't a pimp running a whorehouse who could make them show up. About 15 minutes later there was only 4 of us left, so we played video games and ate pizza the rest of the night. Broke up with BF/fiancé of 4 years that way. Him, well, if you can't change, maybe we should break up. Me, actually yeah. I do think we should break up. And that's how I left, after years of emotional abuse and gaslighting, of course. Back in the mid-90s, a coworker was under a great deal of stress. He was performing a low-skill role in a high-skill industry during a tremendous crunch that was very important to the company. Entry-level stuff. More a job that's a stepping stone than a career. Despite that, he was an integral member of the team with institutional knowledge/background that couldn't be replaced overnight. Actually, it couldn't be replaced at all. During a team meeting to go over status, progress, etc., he asked our boss for some help as he was overwhelmed and simply couldn't keep up anymore. Boss said, "If you can't handle it, there's the door." Dude just stood up and, without a single word, he walked right out. Boss ended up having to do his job until completion of the initiative. New management was hired and took over scheduling, from me who was covering for a now-gone manager, without understanding any of the intricacies of scheduling. After 2 weeks we had an all-staff meeting to address grievances based on her incredibly poor method of scheduling. And she refused to back down, dropping the famous ultimatum. Out of a staff of 40 or so employees, I think maybe half a dozen stayed. Someone said that to me one time while I was at work. It was my boss. I left. Nothing happened. I went back the next day. My boss was mad because I literally had no time to clean the entire kitchen like I was supposed to, and none of 3 other bakers would help me. This included her. She spent most of her time outside smoking. I was pissed. We got a mediocre score on an inspection walkthrough. She got chewed out. So her shitty ass took it out on me and said it was all my fault. I finally pushed back and told her to fuck off, that if she wanted it cleaned she could clean it her fucking self like she was supposed to. That's when the question came up. When I was a teenager, my mother had a boyfriend that lived with us, who would not stop criticizing how both my mother and I lived our lives and how we did things. Our relationships, and even stuff as simple as where in the kitchen certain utensils were. He'd make a fuss and be passive-aggressive and literally stomp his feet in a fit like a toddler about every little thing that didn't live up to his standards. Now my mother had always told me that if I didn't like how things were I could just leave. So several years into this relationship, that's what I told him. And he did. 6 months abroad. Me absolutely dying on the inside for having made my mother sad. They figured it out eventually and he and I made some sort of peace too, and he moved back in. He was better about being a rude bossy bitch afterwards. Not great, but better. A few years after I was old enough to move out, and I did. In a hurry. I work for a hoisting/transport contracting company at a large refinery, and for the most part it's very relaxed. Basically it's more cost effective to have more than enough people just in case something goes wrong, so a lot of the time we just sit around waiting for something to do. My foreman for some reason doesn't like this and thinks we all have it too easy, even though he is totally redundant and literally not needed at all here, and was telling one of the guys one day that maybe he needs to go to the yard, our HQ basically, and see what a real job is like. So he did. He called the office and transferred there permanently, and our foreman on site lost his fucking mind. He didn't even say anything about it for weeks, but we all knew what happened. One day I even asked if, guy that left, was on vacation or something. He just mumbled yes, something like that. It wasn't everyone because it only applied to me. But I was working at a fast food restaurant in high school when we got a new manager who tried to be a hard ass and enforce every rule to the letter of the law. Most of these rules were irrelevant and had been ignored by all previous managers. So he caught out a lot of people who had been there for years and didn't even know what they were doing was technically against the rules. I got in trouble because I pulled out my phone to read a text from my mom. This was 2004 at the time. My mom would have never texted unless it was important, and technically using your phone on the line was against the rules. I thought he just wanted to look at what kind of phone I had because he said, "Hey, can I see that?" But after he got it, he locked it in the office and told me I couldn't have it until the end of my shift. I told him he had to give me my property back immediately, and he said if you don't like it you can quit, so I did. A few folks tried to talk him down, but he was steadfast and refused. I found out later that every other manager told him he was a fucking idiot. He didn't last long. Fun bonus, my mom's phone had gotten a virus, and the text it sent me, and everyone else in her phone book, was a picture of a gummy bear with a penis. I don't know if this counts. But this happened with my siblings and I and my mom. She was a terrible parent, not abusive enough to get child services fully involved, but they had visited the house a few times. Wonder how much abuse kids have to endure before they get off their ass. But apparently being raped by your stepdad isn't a cause for alarm. She always had a "if you don't like living here, move out" attitude. So, as soon as my siblings and I were able to, we moved out. We unfortunately don't get along at all. One of us became a perpetrator in the abuse, another stuck too close to home for me to risk further contact. But the eldest of us left in their early 20s. The middle child left about as soon as they graduated, moved back for a few months but left again. And I moved several states away and never looked back. We all didn't like it and left. And yes, our mom frequently tries asking why. She asks the middle child the most, as she's the only one who keeps contact with our mom. I've cut her off years ago, as did the eldest. As if 18 years of abuse isn't a good enough reason to say fuck it and dip. When I worked third shift at Walmart, the management tried to change a shirt policy overnight. They all of a sudden decided that we had to wear blue-collared shirts. And not blue t-shirts anymore. One of the managers, named Jackie, who was a total bitch, came up to my two friends and myself and told us we had to either go buy new shirts right then or go home. We left. Frozen/Dairy didn't get done that night. And we got to go home and play Destiny all night. Next day they never said another word about our shirts. Fuck Walmart, by the way. While not everyone had a teacher ask a friend, "And do you two need to leave?" Because we couldn't stop laughing at an inside joke. She was not ready for both of our simultaneous responses of yes. She was so taken aback and speechless that we actually left and came back half an hour later that we didn't get detention. Have not seen it, but was told. In one camp, where I worked back in 2018. A year before, the camp was super understaffed. And the pay was shit. People started messing up because they were tired, fed up, and didn't give a shit. Then, the camp director requested a meeting to see what was the problem. And instead of helping the staff who held the camp from falling apart, he started to insult, belittle and threath into them. Lick a fucking tirade. The last thing he said, "Who doesn't like it here can get up and leave." Everyone except the managers and the director walked out. And then the shit hit the fan. People started to leave. And by the end of the week, the camp was almost empty. The company was then forced to hire much more people. Give them a minimum paycheck of average pay in a state. And the director? Who knows where he went? But was fired. A math class in high school. All the math teachers were pretty chill. They knew the majority of kids hated math, so they'd try to make it fun. Wouldn't be as strict as other teachers. And would treat us like adults, happy to just chat about any old thing as long as we tried our best and did the work. One day we had a student teacher come in and teach the class as part of her studies. Up until that point she'd been observing for a couple weeks. She wasn't bad and she'd try to emulate the other teachers. And as an assistant teacher she was good. Well, when it was her turn to teach alone it all went to shit. She constantly lost the attention of everyone and was generally being a hard ass and not really helping people who didn't understand. Halfway through she flipped. Didn't like that she couldn't control the class and just shouted at us all saying if you don't like it then you don't have to be here. So there we were. It was a few seconds of us all thinking wait. Did she just tell us we could leave? Then everyone got up and left. Our regular teacher was sitting at the side observing. He just looked exasperated AF. And didn't stop anyone. Just told us all to have a good day and he'd see us next week. I don't remember ever seeing the student teacher again. Thanks for watching.